December the 5th, and our chapter is window shopping. From our How Winston Delivered Christmas book. Now, Gianna, do you remember what happened yesterday? Winston was puzzled about how far
north is.
Exactly. How north he had to travel to get to Father Christmas's house. So what did he decide he needed?
A map.
Yes. And where does he think there might be a map for him?
On Mistletoe Street.
Exactly. So here we go. The shops on Mistletoe Street had closed their doors for the evening, but there was still plenty going on. People were strolling about, and the band on the corner was playing jolly Christmas music with such poppy and tooting enthusiasm that it made Winston's tiny toes tap, and his heart bounced to the beat as he crunched through the snow with the letter. The street was looking particularly lovely tonight. It was one of the oldest streets in the city, a hodgepodge of buildings all cobbled together so tightly and in such a ramshackle way that you felt that with just one strong gust of wind they could all topple over like dominoes. Tonight it looked more magical than ever, as if a giant baker had made the buildings out of huge slabs of gingerbread and sprinkled them with icing sugar. Can you imagine that? Huge slabs of gingerbread. Oh, we'd eat the buildings, yes.
I don't even know if I like gingerbread.
Well, we'll find out this year. We're going to make some. With the snowflakes falling and the ropes of twinkling lights strung amongst the bare winter trees, it was like a picture on the front of a chocolate box. Winston knew he had to be quick, but he couldn't help having just the tiniest nosy in the shop windows as he walked by. First, unfortunately for Winston's rumbling stomach, was the bakery. It was a 3-story building that grew narrower with each floor so that it looked like a 3-tiered wedding cake. Winston looked dreamily at all the cakes and treats displayed in the enormous window at the front of the store. There were large Christmas cakes, covered with gleaming white icing as smooth as a frozen pond. Some were decorated with Christmas tree biscuits, and one cake had a large edible snowman sitting on top of it. Would you want to eat the snowman or the trees? Both. Ooh, I think it'd be lots of lovely, lovely sugar. Dancing around the cakes were gingerbread men and women looked as more to eat. Winston knew they were only made from dough, but he wished he could slip through the window and dance with them. The centerpiece of the display was an enormous gingerbread castle, golden brown and dusted with sugar. Shiny boiled sweets had been melted down to make the windows, so that a light shining from inside made them look like real stained glass, glinting in the moonlight. Winston's tummy growled loudly at the smells: marzipan, ginger, plum-soaked cherries, and perfectly baked cakes. Oh, poor Winston. Which wafted temptingly from the gap under the door. It was just too narrow for him to squeeze under. He's so hungry. Reluctantly, he turned and kept going down the street. He passed the haberdashers, with the dressmaker's dummy standing in the window, modelling snazzy outfits perfect for the cold winter weather. What's a haberdashery, do you know?
Is that make clothes?
Almost a shop that sells all the little bits and bobs that you need to make clothes. So buttons, ribbons, thread, fabric. And look, this is what the gingerbread castle cake and cakes look like. Oh, so yummy.
I want to eat them.
You want to eat them? Oh, and look, even these are edible. These stars up here, not the bows maybe. There were bolts of fabric propped up behind them, and a collection of pretty sewing baskets overflowing with shiny buttons and trimmings. Winston had become quite attached to the tatty scarf he was wearing, but he decided that a little coat made out of the cosy blue velvet on display would really look quite lovely on him and keep him snug too. Thank you, Ty. He scampered on for holding the page. Next came the sweet shop with its enormous glass jars filled with all manner of delicious-looking treats, and in the middle of the display, a fat little fir tree covered with candy canes. Winston thought it looked so pretty with its confectionery decorations, even if he wasn't completely sure why there was a tree inside the shop. An icy blast of air suddenly shivered down Mistletoe Street. It took Winston rather by surprise and made his ears blow inside out. Oh, dear. As he struggled to fix them, the envelope in his paws escaped and danced off down the street. He squeaked and raced after it. With a well-judged leap, he dived on it and, after a few roly-poly tumbles, he and the letter skidded to a stop outside another brightly lit shop. Winston dusted himself down and glanced up at the window. He stopped dead in his tracks and gasped. He couldn't believe what he was looking at. Do you think the wind had a plan all along? Was it a gust of wind or a gust of magic? I think it's landed him right outside the shop he needs. And what do you think he could be looking at?
Father Christmas?
Father Christmas, maybe. We're going to have to wait till tomorrow. It says today we're supposed to make gingerbread mice. Ah, here's a recipe, look. Bake your very own gingerbread Winstons. Okay, so the recipe ingredients are here. You need 60 grams of unsalted butter, 50 grams brown sugar, 2 tablespoons honey. You can read this ingredient list with your grown-up. And then you want to ask your grown-up for help with all the instructions. Okay, so you've got all the instructions here. I'm just going to hold on it for a little while. We won't read them all, but if I hold on this screen for a short moment, you can see the instructions here too. You're going to start heating the oven, as it says, to 180 degrees. Grease a baking tray. Use a bit of butter to do that, so the mice don't stick. Put your butter, sugar, honey in a saucepan and melt them on low heat. Then you're going to add your flour, bicarbonate of soda and ginger to a mixing bowl. Once the butter is melted, you're going to add the butter to the milk mixing bowl that has the flour, bicarbonate of soda and ginger. When it's all cooled, you're going to mix it a bit with your hands. And if it's too sticky, put a bit more flour. Too dry, add a bit more water. Then divide up your dough into 12 pieces and roll each one into a ball. Put them on a baking tray. And use the palm of your hand to try and flatten the balls and pinch them into a teardrop shape to look like mice. So a teardrop. And then you've got to make Winston's face. You take your cranberries and raisins, dried cranberry and raisins, and cut them in half using scissors and stick them, the raisin halves, on his eyes. And use the cranberry for his nose. And then stick almonds on top of the balls for Winston's ears. And put it in the tray, and on the tray. Put them in the oven, sorry, they're on the tray. Put them in the oven and bake for 5 to 8 minutes. And when they're wonderfully brown and cool, you can pull them out when they're brown, and when they're cool, enjoy eating them. We shall maybe try this recipe. See, we wanted a recipe for gingerbread men. Now we've got gingerbread mice recipe here. Stay tuned for tomorrow.